Seeing no members of the public wanting to make a comment, we'll go ahead and close public input at this time and move on to our business items for the. Our first item of business is the Riverview Townhomes preliminary plat, site plan located at 1050 North Riverside Drive. Matt Brown is the applicant.
Hi. And Matt Brown is not here this evening, but he does have.
He sent me.
Jared Osmond.
Yes.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Jared Osmond here this evening. I'll have you introduce yourself at the end here. All right, so first item on the agenda this evening is the Riverview Townhomes preliminary plat and site plan application. This application is located approximately at 1022 North Redwood Road. The zoning on the property is mixed use, and we have our applicant here this evening, Jared Osmond, as well as David Meredith, who's listed here. Here's the location and zoning map. You'll notice that the site is located up against the Jordan River, behind the Riverview commercial portion of the development. That's what makes up this mixed use. So you can see there that the other half of that property, the western half of that, is also zoned mixed use there. Give you a good idea of where that's at. So first thing I wanted to note, when I was reviewing my staff report for this application, I recognized that I had made a mistake in one of the exhibits that I included. There were several items in the planning review checklist that didn't get updated, that were still marked as shall comply, particularly items relating to landscaping and the building elevations. The staff report that was included with this that says that those items are in compliance with code, as well as the exhibits that were included, did show those items compliant with code. It just failed to get updated in my planning review checklist. So if you have questions about those this evening, those items are compliant with code as submitted in your staff reports that you received. The one item that was marked as shall comply was related to the preliminary plat, final plat. You can see the exhibit here. There's a red line up at the very top of the page, just related to some offsite drawing. Offsite drawing isn't normally included when we go to record a plat, and so this note is more related to the final plat portion of this rather than the preliminary plat, as the final plat is what will be recorded. But that is the one item that was labeled as shall comply, and will just need to be cleaned up before this final plat gets recorded, should it get approved. So that was the one item I did want to point out with that. Otherwise, that preliminary plat is completely compliant with code as drawn. With regard to the site plan, it's 3 townhome buildings that are being proposed on this site, comprising a total of 15 units. Building 1 is the smaller building at the south of the lot and is comprised of 4 units. Building 2 is comprised of 6 units in the middle of the lot, and the building at the north of the lot, building 3, is comprised of 5 units. In addition to the townhomes that are being proposed on this site, this portion of this development would include the construction of their portion of Riverside Drive, which is a 77-foot right-of-way, and shown here between the commercial portion and this townhome portion, where that would be located. The other item of note that was discussed in the staff report that is related to this site is because of the proximity to Jordan River, the city has specific standards that must be followed with regard to a Jordan River buffer. There's a meander corridor that goes through here, as well as it's part of an erosion hazard area. As shown, they are complying with those requirements in our code with regard to the proximity to Jordan River. So you can see there are several setbacks noted on the site plan. I believe there's a 50-foot wetland setback, and then there's a 20-foot trail buffer and a 15-foot patio lawn area that's required before buildings or parking can begin, and that's shown here on the site plan. With regard to landscaping, as I noted, they are in compliance with the city's code. A number of trees are going to be removed that are existing as part of this. They are proposing replacement trees in compliance with code for those trees, as well as additional landscaping as required by code. With regard to the elevations, as I said, this is broken up into 3 buildings. They have their material requirements. I think one of those shall complies on the planning review checklist was with regard to material quantities and how they were calculated with these buildings. Those are compliant at this point in time. It was just an updated calculation that was needed on the plan and was provided. And so you can see here for building 1, these buildings front toward the river as required by code. And so the backs where the driveways will be are what will be facing Riverside Drive. They do meet our articulation requirements. Like I said, our material requirements, you can see here, their color board showing what those materials are going to look like and the colors and the materials themselves that they're going for with these. Here are those side elevations on building 1. Here are the elevations for building 2, front and back. Sides on building 2, front and back on building 3, sides on building 3. The other thing I wanted to point out with the elevations was the floor plans. I think they're of significance to this project given the aesthetic that we want to provide with our Jordan River area. You can see here, like I said, on that first floor is where those garages will be. These go up 3 floors. But you'll note that on the 3rd floor, they have a rooftop garden. 2nd floor has a walkout deck that will overlook the river. And so I just wanted to point that out as well. And each of those buildings kind of follow that same style for each of the floors. So with this, that is the presentation that I had for you this evening. Any questions that you have, I'm available. Our applicant is here this evening as well to provide any input on questions you may have.
All right, thank you for the great presentation. Would the applicant like to add anything to the presentation this evening? And if you would you mind stating your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Jared Osman. I'm the general contractor that'll be working on the job. My address is 11509 South Black Forest Drive in Sandy, Utah.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything to the presentation?
Great presentation. Covered everything, really. We've been working hard to make sure we're compliant. We know we're on a river. We understand the requirements to do that and excited to do it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for being here this evening as well.
Thank you.
We'll now open it up for members of the commission for questions or comments. Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Chair. David, as I was looking at the presentation under the staff conclusion, it said that it was consistent, but it said that though the mixed-use zoning district is not specifically identified as compliant zone within the medium density resident land for the district, the proposal for the townhouse is consistent with the land use designation. Could you give a little understanding there? It says, I got a feeling that, it fits within, but it's not fully fitting within. So could you get some insight there?
Yeah, for sure. And so that was language that was taken when this rezone was originally taken back before the council, I believe back in 2020. And part of staff's findings when it came to mixed use was that the idea of commercial being located along Redwood Road and then townhomes being located up against the river was kind of the idea and fit what the vision for the area was. And so going back to that rezone, this is now coming in with that second half of that accomplishment, really, of that vision for this area, which originally envisioned some sort of residential coming up against the river here.
Well, thank you for that explanation, and Jared, and you can take it back to David too, that, the design, I was very impressed with the materials and that facing the Jordan River. It's going to be a beautiful place. It's kind of landlocked, so you've done a very, very good job of utilizing that space, and I think it's going to be a very livable space and probably one that's going to bring a number of buyers to the plate that would like to be a part of that. as I was reading through, you know, the landscape and primarily the trees were a bit of a concern. And it said to keep an eye on the preservation of the trees that are there. Jared, can you talk a little bit about that?
100%.
Both deciduous and evergreen trees. Could you give us a little update as what you guys are trying to do
Absolutely.
to work around those?
Some of the trees that are there right now have some problems, to be honest with you. They're kind of considered trash trees. They do provide the green that we want to see, but it's just not something that's really maintainable. It's not something that's really great to keep long term. Our goal is to carefully remove the trees out of the wetland areas that are not great trees and replace them with something that's going to last. Because we want this to last. We want these trees to grow up. We want that bank to actually be beautiful. We'll armor the bank. We'll do some things to create those spaces in a way that if I was living there, I'd want to be there. You know, that's something that's, if their kids are going to go out by the trees or if we got a trail by it, that it's going to be something that's not going to be problematic, I think, for the area. So we've tried to consider that as we've laid things out.
Have you used an arborist to come in and kind of give you a sense of those that aren't doing so well and those that are doing well?
Well, we've had people there that have addressed our landscape professionals. They're arborists per se, but
Okay.
they've been there, they've looked at it. We've tried to decide what can stay and what can't, and we're trying to be very careful. We don't want to take anything out that would take away from the river or create any erosion. We want to make sure we maintain obviously the tree count and everything you see here, but we're going to carefully kind of decide through that and make sure the tree counts fit and keep what we can, for sure.
Yeah, I saw that there was 8 deciduous trees and 6 evergreen.
Yes.
And if they're replaced, they're fairly good size,
Yes.
trunk size, so they will fill in really good.
Correct, yeah.
Again, I was really, I was feeling really good as I read the completeness of what you guys have been doing. You've waited a while to be able to get to the point to do what you're doing. So.
Yeah, we've tried to be methodical and careful. We want this to blend well. We love what happened with the commercial side. We're excited about the residential blend, and I think it's going to be great to connect and get that road finally connected.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hill. Appreciate your questions and comments. We recognize Commissioner Mangum as well for joining us, being here this evening. And we will go to Commissioner Sprosty Burns for questions or comments.
Okay, yeah, thanks. This is a really cool spot too. I really like it. I have some questions on, are these townhomes going to be really siloed in there, or are they going to have some other residential that will connect with them?
So as far as this project is concerned, this is where that will end. There hasn't been any sort of proposition, I would say, for development for the parcel immediately to the north or immediately to the south. Very much so, this is the vision, like I said, guiding kind of that area. And so we don't have anything that has been submitted on record yet, but that's kind of the vision that we've held to through this project for sure, so.
Okay, and then, so moving from residential to commercial, I know we have some requirements on like spacing and sometimes fencing. Can you just remind me on what those requirements are and how they're being met in this project?
Yeah, so a lot of that comes with, as far as the distancing and the buffer setbacks that we talk about, those are typically when you have a traditional residential zone coming up against a commercial zone, or vice versa, when you have commercial coming in to next to a existing residential. Because this was a mixed use and because it was planned out from the start to be both hand in hand together, that's essentially the vision that's been carried through here. They did a development agreement on the property with the rezone that laid this kind of out as one of the exhibits in there. And so this has kind of always been the plan with regard to this. But like you said, traditionally when we see commercial zoning coming in to existing residential, there's typically some sort of fencing requirement or screening requirement that's carried with that, so.
And so for this project, there's no screening requirement or fencing requirement?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, with my understanding of mixed use was that it's that residential and commercial that's really mixed in together. And this does feel very siloed in that there is commercial and then there's resident. And where there's no other current residential that butts up to it, and I mean, just guessing off based what's around it, it doesn't look like there's a lot. Obviously, there's nothing we can do at this point, but I would just recommend that as a city, we take a look at that and kind of have that long-term planning done a little bit better.
For sure. That's something we can take a look at it.
I could certainly address that a little bit. When we started this whole thing, the whole idea for us is, my vision as far as mixed goes, and sorry, the mic keeps cutting out, but it's a little problematic in areas like this. If it's more urban, that product works really well. You got the commercial underneath with residential above. It doesn't really work, to be honest with you. Nobody wants to live underneath a space like that. And so our idea of making mixed use was to make it convenient. And one of the things we've found with retail is that when there are doors of residential next door to it, it does very well. It's just another anchor. And I have found in other projects that this type of product works. We want to give them a standalone product on a river. We could always push for some kind of retail component there, but I think that's a mistake on the river. This should be beautiful river ground with the beautiful little townhouses to mix. You've got this big buffer of the road. It ties in with another community just to the north, and we are in communication with the neighbor just to the north of us that has vacant land. We're trying to get that done and make it all consistent. But that's why we went that route. We just believe that even though it's mixed use, it's nice to have that separation of the residential. Instead of a view of retail only, we give them the view of the river. So.
Yeah, and I do like this project a lot. It's, I think on the city's end, it's a little bit short-sighted to not have something in place of a buffer zone between that residential and the commercial, the residential and the commercial. And yeah, it's got a great street, and hopefully the landscaping helps provide that buffer, but there is noise that comes, right?
Sure, it's an element, that you're going to see with anything. But, the noise also, in that particular zone, these buildings are pretty big across the street. Most of that is going to happen in the parking lot. They're to the back of these buildings. Most of the parking is going to be in the middle of the parking lot. They're really not going to get a lot of light coming in because our lighting points to the parking lots. They're not going to get a lot of sound because all the sound happens there, and everything shuts down about 8. So hopefully that's a good buffer there too. And I do like the street and all the landscaping we've provided, but I think it's more of an amenity than a what's the word I'm looking for? Than a drawback to be there, to be able to walk across the street and get dinner and come back. I would like it.
Once again, this
Yeah.
isn't a negative on this
No,
project.
I get it.
This project looks amazing. It's on, the point of this committee is planning commission
Sure.
and having that ultimate plan, and the city addressing this kind of situation coming up in
Yeah.
a not so great.
Yeah, totally get it. You bet.
Sorry, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sparks Burns. Appreciate your questions and comments. Any other questions or comments from members of the commission? I had just a quick clarifying question. So the 77 feet of the connection of the Riverside Drive, will that actually connect to the Riverside Drive?
I could answer that.
Eventually, as part of this project, no.
Not required to connect to
No.
the project? So-
What my
so
plan
people-
is to road base it, at least even at our expense, so that there's a connection if you want to ride across that. I mean, I realize it's such a convenience for the people to the north, but unless this other guy will participate, and so far he doesn't want to, that's why we're trying to buy him out.
So you don't actually own that one little sliver of
That
a
little
truck?
sliver, yeah.
Yeah.
He's holding out for a bigger number, but we're trying to get to something with it.
So they'll enter and access the townhomes via the entrance off of Redwood Road as it currently is.
And we may opt to go ahead and just, throw in asphalt, even as a temporary fix, to just connect it, so that people do have access. I think that's a real amenity. So, and I'm okay with that. Even if that little strip is a temporary asphalt fix until we can get the development on that side, get curb gutter, sidewalk, landscaping, but at least there's a fix, I think.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions or comments from members of the commission, I would be happy to entertain them.
I'd like to make a motion. I move that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation for approval of the requested preliminary plat and the site plan for the Riverview Townhomes located approximately at 1022 North Redwood Road, and the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilden. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprossy Burns. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for being here this evening.
Thanks, Jared.
All right, we'll move on to business item number 2 for the evening. This is the Point Plat Amendment located at 1166 North Redwood Road. Carla Mata as applicant.
Thank you. As stated, the second item on the agenda this evening is a plat amendment that's being requested by the Point Commercial Subdivision. Of note, the Planning Commission is the authority on this plat amendment per code, and so you will not be forwarding a recommendation this evening. You'll be making a motion on it to approve, continue, or deny. This is located at 1166 North Redwood Road. The zoning on the property is community commercial. As you can see here, and our applicant this evening is Carla Mata, as stated. So this is located, it's an existing commercial subdivision. It currently exists as a single lot within our community commercial zone. The applicant is proposing to break this up into 4 lots. Each building on its own lot is the vision here. This has been reviewed against code and does comply with code. There is nothing on this that shall comply with regard to our land development code. So with that, I'm available for any questions you may have on this project.
Okay, thank you for the presentation this evening. Would the applicant like to add anything to the presentation? If you would, please state your name and address for the record.
No, I don't need to add anything.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
available for questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll turn it over to members of the commission now for questions or comments. Commissioner Hill?
Thank you, Chair. It's Carla. Yes, it seemed really, it's preliminary, and it was all compliant, so it fits everything that we need to do. We went from mixed agricultural and neighborhood commercial just to community commercial zone. I looked at it, and again, it's really early, but I think it gives you a lot of opportunity to fit in there what you need to do with the 4 parcels and how that might look. So I felt really good, and it's very heartwarming to see that everything complies at this point. So thank you for your efforts in working with staff to get us to where we're at right now. Thank you. That's all, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Do we have any other questions or comments from members of the commission? Hearing none, I would be happy to entertain a motion.
I move that the Planning Commission approve the request for plat amendment at the Point at Saratoga Springs Plat A amended located at 1166 North Redwood Road with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprossy Burns. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight. Okay, we'll move on to item number 3 of our business this evening. That is approval of the minutes from October 24th, 2024. Now is the time to make any changes, editorial or substantive. Otherwise, I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes as approved for October 24th, 2024.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprossy Burns. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to the reports portion of the agenda this evening. We have opportunity for commissioners' comments. Would anyone like to make comments this evening? Hearing none, I'll just make mine. Farewell. So thanks for letting me serve with all of you. Appreciate it. Things changed in life, and was recruited to take a job in Lexington, Kentucky area. So I'll be headed out there, started next week on December 2nd, and working for a group called the Asphalt Institute. So happy to be able to do that. Sad to be able to leave friends and colleagues, particularly with the service of the many years that I've been here on the Planning Commission, few other spots. But change is good, and sometimes hard things are right things, and both can be true, and that's a good thing for our family. This is the only home that my kids have ever known, actually, in 12 years in Saratoga Springs, watching it grow and change. And so it's a good opportunity for us to experience the world a little bit as a family and enjoy a different bit of scenery. So thank you all for letting me serve with you. I really appreciate that.
We surely appreciate your leadership and the knowledge that you brought to the table, especially in transportation, because that's a very specific area, and bringing that expertise to the table. Thank you, and just you're a way to make people feel comfortable. So thank you.
I appreciate it.
All in favor? No.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Hill. Thank you very much. And Commissioner Wilden, thank you as well. And thank you as well to everyone here. And also to the staff, first rate, working with all of you. It's been a real pleasure and joy. Thank you for your professionalism and your expertise and friendship as well. You have a quick comment over here?
Sorry, didn't mean to press the button, but I was going to say thank you as well for serving as our chair. That's what I was going to say. I have director's report as well, but.
Excellent. Well, let's keep the evening moving, since no one wants to motion to give me a large bonus. All those pockets that we get lined as we serve on the planning commission, right? If you follow Saratoga Springs link, we're all just running to the bank, apparently. So thank you all. I really appreciate it. Let's move on to director's report.
Sorry to interrupt that. But really, thank you. The other thing that I wanted to bring up with that is our upcoming meeting in December is on the 12th, and it will also be the last meeting for our vice chair, Ken Kilgore. Just so you're all aware, Sarah and Ken Young are both absent this evening because they're interviewing the fill-ins for our planning commission, and so it's a big loss to have both of you guys go, our chair and our vice chair. But thank you for your service. As far as director's report goes, or planner's report goes, we had council on November 19th. There were two items that were both approved at that meeting that had previously been taken to the Planning Commission. One was the daycare on Thrive Drive. It had been several months. Since it's been here, they had gotten tabled, I believe, at council, but ultimately that was approved. The other item that had been to Planning Commission previously was the site plan amendment for the Big Green, which is going into the old Vasa building, I believe, and that was approved as well. They were doing some, I think, aesthetic work on the building there in preparation for their business. So that's it for my report.
Awesome, thanks. Jeff Rulon, anything from your areas we need to know about?
Just make sure your guys' training is done. I know you keep getting harped on, but the end of the year's coming up, so make sure when you guys those forms available, do it online.
Perfect. That's the whole reason why I'm moving to Kentucky, right there. All right, we appreciate everyone. Do we have any need to enter into a closed session this evening? Seeing no need to enter a closed session this evening, we will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you all for being here this evening.